Hello, everyone. This week on Friends on Film, we are going to be talking about our top 5 most anticipated movies coming up this summer, and we are also going to be giving our reviews of Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme and the live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. I am joined here by my good friend, Michael. How are you doing today, man?
Doing well. It has been a very, very good day. It's been fun hanging out with you because, for those of you who don't know, we are recording this on June 12th. So by the time this comes out, we have just seen How to Train Your Dragon.
It's been about, at least, 45 minutes?
Yep, so it is very fresh. We're very excited to get through this. But of course, friends, we want to know your thoughts on all of these coming up. What are your thoughts of the Phoenician Scheme? What did you think of How to Train Your Dragon? And what are you looking forward to for the rest of the summer? So be sure to head over to our Instagram and leave your thoughts there.
I cannot wait to start this. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to be talking about The Phoenician Scheme, a movie by Wes Anderson, who, let's just be well, Wes Anderson is just a charming director all around, and he's always got such great atmosphere in his movies and character development. Now, I will be honest, as of recent, with the exception of this movie, I guess what I'm trying to get at is movies like The French Dispatch and Asteroid City, they haven't been really hitting the mark too well, for me at least.
He's continually bringing up himself as a director in a really cool way, especially in his visual style. I really think Asteroid City, he really experimented in some cool ways.
Yeah, there is like, I've heard people say like, oh, I couldn't stand Asteroid City, there wasn't anything good. I was like, oh, okay. I personally couldn't get behind the movie, like I said earlier, but I think there's plenty to look at and say, oh, that's pretty cool, and maybe you could learn something from that, if anything.
Right. I think, though, for this one, The Phoenician Scheme, it goes back to Wes Anderson at his best, which is these great characters in this intriguing world and filled with some top-notch comedy that you're not expecting to laugh at, but when you hear it, you're like, that was so dry, sarcastic, and I love it.
Just dry, dark Wes Anderson humor. Now, you were saying that this is potentially in your top 5.
Yeah, as I've thought about it, this might still be in my top 5.
I might need to give this movie a rewatch, but now that being said, that doesn't mean I don't like the movie. If anything, I want to see it again just to see how it resonates with me, because I had that experience almost with the Grand Budapest Hotel. Even though I loved that movie after the first screening, the second time I saw it, I just loved it even more. So I'm wondering if I would get that same kind of reaction from a second viewing of this movie.
Yeah, this is a movie I do want to see again, just to see every detail that was leading up to what is an ending that I honestly wasn't expecting as soon as it starts, because I thought, oh, there's going to be a poetic kind of closing ending.
Yes.
Similar to what he would do with Royal Tenenbaums, but he doesn't. And I really admire that.
I also admire, because Asteroid City and French Dispatch were very experimental, which there's nothing wrong with experimentation, but every now and then the experimentation, it becomes very much a style over substance problem, which is, I felt that for the most part with the French Dispatch. But with this, there was experimentation, but it was varied to a degree that actually felt natural to this story. And let's break down the story. Maybe you can break it down best.
Right.
Yeah.
So the Phoenician Scheme follows a man named Jaja, played by Benicio del Toro.
Beautifully.
Who is a multi-billionaire, has done a lot of stuff to make people very angry at him, and he survives his 4th plane crash, which is another assassination attempt on his life. And as he's now planning to launch his greatest scheme ever, the Phoenician Scheme, he's also trying to reconnect his daughter, who wants to be a nun, but he wants her to take over the family business.
Also because he's got 9 sons and they are nowhere near that age. that was a nice comedic little entry for that. But and if you're thinking, oh, I've seen this done before, like, okay, I've seen people get screwed up by the main character, like, say, maybe not the best example, like Jack Sparrow, how he'll screw people every now and then, but that's a different kind of level of humor. This is that trademark Wes Anderson dry, deadpan humor that works, and also because the dialogue is just so snappy and quick-witted, you want to pay attention a little more. Like, not because you want to miss the joke, but because you also want to see how everything's going to turn out. And let's also not forget to mention there is another character in there played by Michael Cera, who is he starts off doing his trademark Michael Cera voice, and then later he becomes something completely different. Like, I would not have expected that from him. So well done, Wes Anderson. You've changed my perspective on Michael Cera.
I think what's really great, as you earlier mentioned, the screenplay of this movie is very airtight.
Yes.
Not just in the snappy dialogue, but in the way it sets up something and it begins the story. It's a not so subtle thing to tell you this movie is not what you think it's going to be when you hear the billionaire is dead, because he flashes then into these visions of afterlife, and we don't know if he's actually seeing these or if there's something going on with him or if there is a spiritual connection there. But these very Ingmar Bergman-esque
That's
visions start off with him realizing where he needs to go and why. And in fact, it launches him to do the Phoenician Scheme itself.
Exactly.
But then it begins to peel back the layers.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like this from him since maybe, I want to say maybe the Isle of Dogs in some capacity, where he gets like just completely out there in terms of like how people view certain aspects of life.
I think it is very, very cool to see Wes Anderson experimenting in his own style. I think a lot of times, a lot of people have said they want to see Wes Anderson try something new. And this feels like he's trying something new. He's trying to do a very specific style in his style.
Yes.
Especially in the way Bergman made it and how does he make it in his style, and I think it really works. The Phoenician Scheme really is held up, though, by two great performances from Benicio del Toro and Mia Therapulton. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Of course, del Toro just beautifully embodies the character of Zsa Zsa Corda. He really makes you feel and care for this character when, in a time and age where, not to get political, there are certain people and billionaires who we have opinions of.
Fill in the blank for that billionaire wherever you want. Yeah.
And what I love about Del Toro in the role, and also to an extent what Wes Anderson does, they could have they remind you of them, but then they go deeper.
They do.
And you start realizing, oh, there's more to this. And it does make you think a bit more about the lives that some of these people live. And this movie honestly has a lot of hope for them beyond their superficiality.
Exactly.
And then Therapulton is phenomenal as his daughter. Liesl is a phenomenal character in of herself. I think what's great is that she does have a romantic subplot, but it's not the arc of her character.
Nor is it like heavily focused on. It's just, she's much like, as I was explaining with the Wes Anderson style, she's got that deadpan Wes Anderson like delivery, which it still keeps it raw with the character though. And in how she interacts with her father, it makes it all the more, not so much believable, but it grips you into their story a little bit more, because she is also coming off of, she's well, I don't know if she's a nun, she's a novice because she still has to read her rights, I believe.
Right.
But at the same time, she's questioning what can she do further in life. You can see that in the performance, as well as like when she's talking and having these certain interactions off of other people who we meet in the movie.
But then the real character of this movie comes out in their interactions with characters played by Riz Ahmed, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Benedict Cumberbatch. Not to go into some spoilers or specifics with each of these characters, all of them are very fun and funny in their own way. They all bring something to the table.
Oh, yes.
And even when you think you figured out how the movie's going to go with its structure, and halfway through changes how it's structuring its film. And it is fabulous and wonderful in so many ways. I would say if you're not a Wes Anderson fan or you haven't really checked out his style, this might be the one to check out again because it's very, very good. For maybe some of our cinephile friends out there who maybe have checked out a Wes Anderson, this might be the time to check back in. So I think overall, I would highly recommend going to see this in theaters if you get a chance. But there's also no shame in waiting for streaming.
It's got beautiful cinematography, though. If you are someone for eye candy and cinematography, definitely watch it for that alone.
Right. This is a movie to see in theaters, and we think you enjoy it.
Yes. And then moving on to the movie we just got out of, How to Train Your Dragon. This was a movie I would say I was cautiously optimistic about, but at the same time, I guess I'm feeling the live action remake fatigue.
Right.
Which, does this movie validate its existence? Does it need to exist? What are they going to do that's new? Blah, blah, blah. We've heard these before. Now, we just got out of the movie. What did we think? I loved it.
I loved it too. It was gorgeous.
I was actually surprised. And here's the ironic thing. Even though we've criticized movies in the past for steering too close to their source material and that they almost do stuff shot for shot, this movie does that too, but there's something different about it this time around.
I would say it's more the heart and soul because for a lot of people when they hear shot for shot remake, for a lot of people it's being lazy. We've seen that before, and a lot of people who do it are doing it more either to experiment or to save money in the hopes of being a cash grab.
Now, with this movie, like you were saying earlier, it has the heart and charm of the original, and it helps that Dean Dubois was the director leading on from the last movie. Not the last movie he directed, but he was one of the directors of the original. And just all around, I mean, man, we could go on and on about what's great. Here's what we can list off. Performances are all great.
Mason Thames as Hiccup is just live action Hiccup.
Yeah, he is live action Hiccup, but he doesn't necessarily have his voice and inflectuations, but that's good because he can make it his own. If we just did not Jason Thames, what was the original actor's name again?
Jay Baruchel.
Jay Baruchel, yeah. So if we just did that with this movie, then that's where I would say, okay, you're not adding anything that different. You're just having someone reenact this. Now, the one part where I give it a pass, however, is with the one, the only, the great Gerard Butler. I mean, when Dean Dubois probably gave him the call saying, hey, I'm making a remake of How to Train Your Dragon. I need you to come back as Stoic. And this is going to be live action. He probably said, say no more. I'm coming. I get to be this character again in live action. Great. I'll even throw in some of my 300 flair just to like add to the drama. It was just all great performances, even from the other folks who they got to play the kids, like Astrid.
Nico Parker as Astrid, phenomenal. Gabriel Howell as Snotlout was amazing.
He looked like the animated guy, actually, funny enough.
Julian Dennison as Fishlegs was amazing.
He was perfect, yeah.
Bronwyn James as Roughnut and Harry Trevaldwin as Toughnut. They both were hilarious.
Yeah, they were hilarious. Everybody does a great job even acting with some things that aren't there, those being the dragons, which... Okay, let's just get this out of the way. Yes, they look like the dragons from the original. And I have no issue with that because at least the texturing, the effect, and everything about them, it's great. They've got the expressions, especially Toothless, who looks just as amazing as ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would also like to add Nick Frost as Gobber.
Oh, he was perfect.
Really came into his own. And Craig Ferguson, who I played him in the last film, who did a phenomenal job. Nick Frost does a phenomenal job taking on this role. And I would also add the cinematography by Bill Pope is stunning.
I loved how this movie was also, even though, yes, it is a very effects-heavy movie, and that's okay, as long as the effects look great. But I was also just amazed with just the location shots, like all of like where they filmed in what I'm assuming is Scotland, if I had to be honest. But that when they were shooting on location and all
they were shooting in Ireland.
Ireland, okay. So when they were shooting in Ireland, shooting in all the mountains, the meadows, and all the forest shots, it all looked so gorgeous. I was like, wait, they actually shot on location? They could have just green screened all this, but they didn't. Dubois wanted this movie to look as great as it possibly could be, and I'm so glad he was that passionate because of that.
Mm-hmm. I would say I've seen some reviews, and I can see where they're coming from. I'll have to think about it over time. But one of the things that I can see where people are coming from is the relationship between Hiccup and Stoic in this, I think, is a little bit better, just because both Mason Thames and Gerard Butler do such a phenomenal job bouncing off one another.
Yeah.
They really feel like a father and son. They really feel like they connect. And none of it ever felt forced from them. You can definitely tell that they were wearing their hearts on their sleeves. They were very emotionally vulnerable.
Yes.
Even when the moments they were trying to not be vulnerable, it felt very honest. And I was very, very impressed. And I also have to give it up especially to John Powell for returning with this score.
I mean,
it's the definition of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, bring back the guy who handled it all from the beginning and you'll be just fine.
It is a gorgeous film, and I would say if you have kids, we had a bunch of little kids in that theater who were so into this movie.
Oh yeah, they were very into this, definitely not to the point where they were getting annoying. No, if they're into it, so be it. That's okay.
Right.
Now, I remember once this movie ended, you turned to me and said, Disney, what is your excuse?
Yeah, many people know I'm much less harsher on the live action remakes than most people, but I feel like with this one, and I also want to mention the Disney live action remakes, quite a few of them have been made with a lot of heart.
Yes.
And if not, sometimes they have, almost to a fault, too much respect for the original to try and do anything that might be challenging or new.
Either too much respect or too much thought in terms of, how do we modernize this? How do people can gravitate and relate to it? But this movie just comes out and says, you don't need to modernize anything or do what's being done because of what the internet is saying. You just need to add that charm and heart behind it.
Right. And I think you can definitely feel that throughout what Dean DeBlois is doing. And I would also argue this is maybe we need to really have the original filmmakers, if they're able to, they really need to be involved in the production of a lot of live action remakes.
Yes.
And I really do wonder, because we are fans of the director of the live action remake of Mulan. She is a very good director.
She is a good director, but if you've heard our episode, that was definitely not the strongest of those remakes, and that was just such a shame.
Right, and I wonder, had she sat down with the original filmmakers, would she have not fallen into that trap? Because we even mentioned there were some cool ideas, especially with the new villains they were trying to do, the things they could explore. I wonder if the original filmmakers had at least just sat and had a meeting.
Yeah.
If they were able to take a look at their current draft of the script and go, here's the pitfalls, here's what we're seeing, and I have a feeling that these could really work. I could say, as Chris Anderson said, you don't even have to hire us, just wine and dine the original filmmakers. Just go out to dinner and figure it out.
Yeah, it's not so much about getting there okay. It's about having them help you understand what you're doing.
Right. I would say for How to Train Your Dragon, I would say if you're a huge fan of the original, if you liked the original, if you've got kids and you need a movie to go see, this is one to go see in theaters. And I would even argue this might even be IMAX quality.
I would actually agree.
Going to see this in IMAX would be incredible.
I made the mistake of not seeing the original How to Train Your Dragon in theaters, but I'm glad I saw this version because at least the flight sequences were as amazing as they were when I first saw the original.
Right. I think this is worth shelling out the money to this month to see it in IMAX. We did not see it in IMAX. But if I had a choice, if I were offered it, I would definitely try to see this again.
Yes, very much. So our glowing review of How to Train Your Dragon and a live action remake. Wow, what a rarity. Well, moving on next, we are going to be talking about our top 5 most anticipated movies of this summer. Now, yes, we are aware it is June 12th. We are knee-deep in summer blockbuster season. Now, that being said, there's still some stuff to look forward to.
There's quite a bit coming out this summer, and we're only going up till August.
Yes.
Probably after August, and we'll say we hope so, because, well, after the Oscars, we got busy, which is why you didn't hear our Oscar recap.
Oh, yeah.
So we hope to, after summer passes, to talk about what we're looking forward to in the fall and winter, which is basically the rest of the year. But summer has got a lot coming out. And my friend, I want you to start us off with your number 5.
So number 5, I've got on. The reason why I have this movie at number 5 is because I see this coming. Not coming. I see myself maybe watching this next week, and I have a good feeling this is going to be a favorite of mine this summer. It is Ballerina, the part of the John Wick universe. Now, I have loved the John Wick universe ever since it started back in 2014. Keanu Reeves, my husband. I will support anything he's in, but even though he is in this movie, this is a spin-off, it's easy to roll your eyes and be like, oh, spin-off, Star Wars does this, Marvel does this, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, this is an original IP, and they've made 4 successful movies. So if anything, I think I would argue they have earned their spot in doing the spin-off stuff. Now, with all that said, who did they get? Well, we got Ana freaking de Armas, who has knocked it out of the park in pretty much everything she's been in. Like, my first time seeing her was in Blade Runner 2049. And then she was pretty solid in No Time to Die, did some great action, actually, for what little she did, which probably what landed her this role. But her real standout was, of course, Knives Out, where she really showed us her acting chops.
Right.
So it helps to have good action background as well as good just acting background from those 2 movies alone, is what I'll say. And this is also risky and bold, just making all of a sudden a spin-off movie with a female lead. I'm not saying this because, I doubt females or women can lead their own movies. No, they can. Wonder Woman, Fury Road, or Furiosa, I should say. They can do it. We just need to give them a chance. And just based off what I've seen in this movie, it looks like that they've handled it with grace and sincerity without trying to pander too much to a specific note that an executive probably gave. And I also heard that Chad Stahelski, I believe that's his name, who was one of the directors of the original movies, he was involved as a producer on this movie. So there is some hope that it's going to keep that same consistency. But what I also really love about this universe is just the world. Each movie and each John Wick movie gives us more and more of this world without having to say too much. But the more you're engulfed, kind of like how Kubrick would do with his movies, the more he engulfs you in this world, the more you start to understand it a little more. And that's what I love about this kind of universe. It's almost like Star Wars in that capacity. I think my only little small, I guess, not gripe, but the small thing I probably would have, if I was a producer or someone on the marketing team, my little note would be like, I don't know if you should have shown John Wick in the trailers. I don't know if that was a good idea. That's something you probably lead into a surprise in the movie. But if it's handled well, so be it. If like, okay, if they still handled his scenes and gave him great action, because it's John Wick, Keanu Reeves. He's amazing. Anything he does, like, I'm always gonna go watch. And if he's handling this movie with Ana de Armas, I mean, how can I reject this movie at all? I mean, come on.
As someone who still has not seen the John Wick franchise, which is probably going to be a fun thing for us to do on this
Oh
this
boy,
show.
yeah.
The trailers for Ballerina have looked really good. Ana de Armas, of course, being a lead of an action film, just feels right.
Yes.
And as you said, the world has seemed very intriguing, and getting to explore that world more without John Wick is a very interesting challenge.
Yeah.
And I really hope they pull it off. I really hope it does well enough for them to keep going.
Yes.
And
they do have a show, I believe, called The Continental. I believe it's on Hulu or Apple TV. I haven't seen that series, but I've heard some good things about that series. But either way, this is a universe that has been consistently great all the way through, for me at least.
And coming at my number 5 is actually one that I was not expecting to be anticipating, but enough trailers have passed, enough time has got me going, okay, this is going to be cool. And that would be F1.
Okay.
I am not into racing at all. I'm not a big Formula One guy.
Me neither.
I've never, and I do like racing films, though. I'm one of the few people on the planet that does like Cars quite a bit. I love the first Cars a lot.
Oh, you're not few. Okay, first of all, there are more than a few people that like Cars. First of all, the Pixar movie, there are more than a few, so don't say that.
Okay, good to know, because I've liked it a lot ever since I saw it in theaters when I was a kid. But the trailers for F1 have been consistently great with this story that seems very interesting, and knowing it's based on a real life story. And I was also very intrigued because this is coming from Joseph Kosinski, who has directed famously Top Gun Maverick, which was a spectacular film. But Kosinski's very first movie was Tron Legacy, and many people remember the light cycles of that.
Yeah.
So him and racing have already been a big thing. But now coming after Top Gun Maverick, where he learned to tell really great stories in a way that wasn't very flashy or out there.
Yeah.
And you realize just how smart the film is without needing to pander. I'm very intrigued to see what does he do with F1.
Yeah.
I think the racing sequences are going to be great, but more so this story that they're talking about this older racer meeting a younger one, and the two of them having to team up and learn to race and work together as a team in this F1 race. I can see where this could be intriguing. This one is at number 5 because it just became a anticipated summer film, but I have a feeling this one could be really, really fun and really interesting. I think with Joseph Kosinski at the helm, I think this story is probably going to be much more emotional than we're expecting.
And Brad Pitt's come on, Brad Pitt's a
it's
great
Brad
actor.
Pitt.
Yeah.
I mean, the dude has an Oscar, and he clearly has... Him as a racer, as a Formula One racer specifically, just feels right.
Yeah.
And the trailers for this looked really, really good. So that right now is an anticipated film of mine that I'm surprised I'm anticipating, but it's very, very interesting.
That's one I'm probably going to have to try and see if I can prompt my dad into watching at some point, because he's very much a car guy. He's not into Formula One, but he's very much, like I said, he's a car person. So this might be something up his alley. Kind of like, it's kind of reminds me almost of when I watched Ford v Ferrari with him. I wasn't that big into all that, but I did want to look up what happened behind the scenes with not the movie, but with the story that they were presenting. So if the movie can do that, great.
Right.
Well, now that we've now that we've covered our 5s, let's go on to number 4. So for me, I had to throw in a horror movie, and no, it is not Bring Her Back, which was really great, but not for the faint of heart. I'm putting in 28 Years Later, and the reason I have it on here is because I actually have not seen 28 Days Later.
Interesting.
I have it on Blu-ray, but I haven't seen it yet, but I was always thinking, and I didn't know this was a third movie, actually. So we have 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, now 28 Years. That's now okay. And it's also the same filmmakers, Danny Boyle and Alexander Garland, who I've got to say has really, really elevated as a filmmaker and a screenwriter. Right. So I still need to see the first two, which is what I'm going to do to rectify this mistake. But the trailers have intrigued me, and I do like, okay, let's also be real. If a zombie apocalypse ever happened, we would totally fix that. Yes, we've got the technology for it. The National Guard would be all over that. Now, that being said, What would happen if we didn't have full control over that? How would we survive? What would the future look like? And I think I like what this movie's providing. I like that it's showing us that we all had to live on a separate island and we have to wait for a tide to come in so to cross and then come back. And if we miss the tide, we're trapped until the next day. And there's no communication out there. That is a terrifying, terrifying idea. And the way they're presenting it in the trailers and even just the culture and the cinematography that they're presenting with like how our world has evolved since the zombie apocalypse, I'm intrigued. And as a horror fan, I think it's nice to bring a subgenre back into the spotlight with grace and sincerity, as I was saying with How to Train Your Dragon. If you're going to bring something back, do it with with heart and sincerity, like I was saying. And again, that's also the same filmmakers. It all feels like it's coming together. And one thing that I also thought was very, very interesting was this movie. This movie was shot on iPhones.
Oh, really?
A lot of this was shot on iPhones, and I was looking behind the scenes, and I saw like there was this guy. There was like I guess they're doing like I can't explain it. Maybe a POV shot from the actor, but he was wearing a device that had like several iPhones rigged around his head or something like that. I was like, huh. And then I guess I found that scene in the trailer. It's like that's an iPhone. Okay. So once again, proving you don't need pitch perfect cameras to make a good movie. You just need good camera work and good people and creative artists. So if they're bringing in enough creative flair with enough scares with this subgenre, I'm all in because I haven't really been scared of a zombie movie, if I'm being honest. They're fun. I'll be on like just to name a few, because the majority of what I've seen are comedies. Like I liked Night of the Living Dead, and I liked some of the further sequels, even though they get pretty hokey, like any horror sequel from the 80s did, like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. But the comedies that I've seen, like Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is probably my favorite zombie movie. And I did see, what was the one with Brad Pitt? World War Z. That one I thought was okay, albeit a little cartoony at times. But I like this. I now need to check out 28 Days Later just to see how this all spun about.
Right. I almost put it in my most anticipated films of the year list just solely based on that trailer.
Yes,
that first trailer was remarkable so many ways.
Oh yeah, it caught us. I think we saw that trailer when we went to go see the Revenge of the Sith 20th anniversary, and hearing that dialogue, that muffled radio talk of that rhyme that they're doing.
That is Rudyard Kipling's poem about when he was in a war, and it's called Boots. And it's narrated by an actor from the 1920s, and it was actually the full recording is very haunting, and very terrifying. It's very beautifully done, and apparently for a while the FBI actually used that for training soldiers and people for torture resistant techniques if they could listen to it over and over again. And so the film builds such a intense, oppressive, anxiety-filled atmosphere, which, as you said, for zombie films, you don't know how that can go.
Yeah, it could go many ways, but this looks like it's handling it in all the right avenues.
And if it's scary, it's phenomenal.
Yes, so I can't wait to see this. Hopefully I won't be too stressed with moving by then, but still, yeah, I'm going to do what I can.
What I've got at my number 4 is another one that when I saw was coming out this summer, I moved it onto the list. This one is Highest to Lowest.
Interesting.
Now, this is Spike Lee remaking Akira Kurosawa's High and Low.
Huh.
So, High and Low, if anyone has watched a lot of the Criterion Closets stuff, everybody recommends this movie. A lot of people say this was Kurosawa's best movie, which tells the story of this businessman who is told by these kidnappers that they have his son and he needs to pay ransom money, except he figures out they kidnapped the wrong son. His son is safe, but it's someone who works at his company who they kidnapped his son, and so he has to decide, do I pay these kidnappers and save this child's life, or do I not? Now, this is Spike Lee doing it, starring Denzel Washington in this role, taking place in modern-day New York.
Of course.
So, Kurosawa and foreign remakes surprisingly have a really good track record.
Yes.
A lot of his films that have been remade by wonderful filmmakers have turned out very, very strong.
Or at the very least, a lot of great filmmakers have been heavily influenced by his films as well.
And so for Spike Lee to take on Kurosawa is a very intriguing thought. And on top of this, commentary on class, which Spike Lee, is a huge fan of, But to put Denzel in the lead of the CEO, that's already a very intriguing thing for me.
Oh yeah, it's almost out of his comfort zone putting someone of that status in like a higher position.
And having to make this challenging choice, and there can be so many things you do, especially in the modern day, especially in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued to see what Spike Lee is going to do with this story.
Yeah.
How he wants to tell it, how he modernizes it in America, especially since the culture is very different from when Kurosawa shot the film.
Yes.
And it got screened at Cannes, and it had a lot of praise around it. A lot of people really, really enjoyed it.
Well, great, yeah.
So I'm very intrigued to see what Spike Lee and Denzel do with a remake of an Akira Kurosawa film.
And Spike Lee's last movie that he made, well, it was Da 5 Bloods, right? I believe, the Netflix movie. I wasn't a huge fan of that, and I don't know if that had to do with how little that he had Chadwick Boseman in it or anything, but his story either got a little too indulgent on its message, especially with a certain character wearing a certain hat that had a certain grouping of words. But I'm always I'll give Spike Lee another shot. I gave Wes Anderson another shot, so I can do the same for him. I'd say his best movie that I've seen in the modern era is still probably Black Klansman, but we'll see what happens here.
Right.
Yeah. I guess now we're moving on to number 3.
Number 3.
So number 3, I am not the biggest romantic comedy person. I'm not the biggest romantic drama person, and let alone I probably wouldn't even consider a rom-com or however you would put it, the hybrid. But from the trailers I've seen about this movie, The Materialist, I'm intrigued. Maybe it's because I guess it touched me in a way that made me feel like I can relate to this story. Not so much because I've been in matchmaking myself, but maybe it's also because I've been on the world of online dating and being rejected, or not even just rejected, just ghosted completely. So The Materialist is very much from what I can gather from the trailer, and I could be far off by the time the movie comes out. The Materialist seems to be about a woman who is played by Dakota Johnson, and she is a matchmaker, and she's very successful at her job, but she also at one point dated this man who was played by Chris Evans, but he's at a very low point in his life. He's not making a lot of money, and she probably still, and I'm assuming based off the trailer, has feelings for him, but she doesn't believe she can be with someone like that until she meets another man who is played by, well, Pedro Pascal. So Chris Evans versus Pedro Pascal in a what you want to call it, in a little love triangle. That's any woman in that situation, I don't envy them. But from what I like is it seems like they're trying to add a little more substance to this kind of idea, because for one, the director was a matchmaker herself, actually, before she started working in Playwrights in New York, from what I read. But the other thing is, in the modern world with dating, people, I've noticed, have become more materialistic. And I'm not saying this is not me trying to knock women for being materialistic. No, nobody is safe. All men and women are materialistic. We just do it very differently. Most men are just very openly about it. Some women are open about it, or some are just very silent and don't give you any kind of treatment. It runs the gambit. So what I'm hoping I can get from this movie, not just me, what other people who may I guess suffer from this stigmatism, I'm hoping people who watch this can relate and say, maybe I need to change. I'm not saying a whole movie can change one person in one day, but I think this is the kind of movie we need to remind ourselves, I guess, what love could be. And also, let's see, something else I'd like to talk about is, aside from it not looking too like standard, like a lot of rom-coms, which I hate being that guy, but hey, look, if rom-coms are your thing, if that's your junk food, go for it. Superhero movies are my junk food. Come on, I can't argue. But the one person I do want to talk about the most in this movie is probably Dakota Johnson. She hasn't had the most, it's not that her career's been bad, it's just she hasn't made it up there quite yet. And it's not because she's bad, well, let's be real. I think the two movies people mainly remember her for are 50 Shades, not two movies, like the franchise in general. And then, of course, most recently, Madam Web, which... not a good career move, but also she was under the influence that she was she was under the impression that she was going to be in an MCU movie, and then she saw this was a Sony movie, and she probably wanted to give it a chance, but oh man, I'm not going to talk any more about that and go on tangent. So I'm hoping this movie can really skyrocket her into the stratosphere in terms of like just great acting performances, because the trailer really shows that she's doing it. She's giving it her all.
Right. I think Dakota Johnson, when she finally cares about something, when she gets a project she cares about, I should say, she really does find a way in that's really beautiful. And as and I've seen the trailers for these, and you're right, it looks very interesting in the way that it looks like it's trying to play with expectations. It's telling you this is not your standard rom-com.
No.
I think this is going to be a very interesting watch for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't know for me if it's going to be a theater watch, but I am intrigued to see where it's going to go.
I hope this movie is like, I know I was saying earlier, I don't want this movie to change anyone overnight or anything like that, but I hope it provides a very, very big wake-up call for anyone out there who's probably materialistic. That's not me trying to knock people out there on the dating world or anything like that. That's just, in my experience, I've known people who are these specific expectations whenever they want to date someone, and it's not healthy, to say the least. You're not going to find your person based off your checklist. You need to have that click,
Right.
which is also the reason why I've stopped doing online dating altogether. I want to go out and meet people because, in other words, that's when you can establish that connection a whole lot more organically. Yeah.
I think that's going to be a really intriguing film. I think I've known that everyone who's seen the trailer has said that looks really good.
It does look really good, yeah.
It's got a really great trio of leads, and as you said, a director who looks like she's telling a very personal story.
Yeah, I haven't seen, what was the director's name? It was Celine Song, I believe. Yeah, Celine Song. This is not her debut. She's done, I'm sure, like 2 other movies, and I'm sure they were very personal, but this is probably her swan song, if I had to guess, because like I said, she's already worked as a matchmaker before, so we'll see how this goes.
And going into my number 3, I'm pretty sure I saw it on your list a bit earlier, but for me, number 3 is going back with Pixar on this cute little movie called Elio. With Elio, we have another original from Pixar, which I'm very excited about. Now, this film has had a bit of a rocky behind the scenes.
I've heard that the director, what was his name? Not Danny Boyle. I'm reading 28 years later. Dang it. I could have sworn I had it on here. I don't have the original director's name, but the new directors that they got, Domi Shi, who directed
Turning
Red, and then Madeline Sarafian, who has been mainly a creative consultant on stuff like We Bare Bears, and did some animation with Coco and Turning Red as well. So she's already worked with this director, her co-director at least. Oh, there's the original director's name, Adrian Molina. He was the original.
And he's still credited as co-director of this film.
And from what I was told is, actually, I'll let you talk. This is my number 2, by the way, so we're very much going to be in sync right here.
Right, and this is my number 3. With the director of Turning Red, I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions about that movie. For me personally, I thought Turning Red was one of Pixar's best directed films in a long, long time.
It was so personal in a way that felt organic to audiences to digest. It didn't feel like the director was thinking of themselves. They were thinking of the movie they were going to show their audience. Yeah.
And that animation style definitely reflected that.
Yeah.
The humor was definitely there from the beginning. But then it told this really beautiful, powerful personal story, both about culture and about growing up, and
just expectations about
making a very good coming of age film that I think more people should give another chance and check it out.
And not just young women and mothers, very much young men and I guess fathers as well. It hit me in a way that I didn't think it would, and I got to be honest, if I were to have daughters, I would probably show them this movie to let them know, hey, growing up's going to be very awkward. There's going to be a handful of other coming of age movies I will be showing my children. This will definitely be one of them.
But with Elio, I'm very intrigued. This is a story about a little boy who is living with his aunt, and
who's voiced by
Zoe
Saldana. Yeah.
And this boy is very alone, and he wants to be abducted by aliens, and he wants to see them. Well, he gets his wish and ends up meeting these aliens, but now he has to protect and defend them, and also be the ambassador of Earth.
Now, from that, you almost hear liar revealed story, but this is Pixar. They can take this story, they can take this concept, and they can add charm to it. They can add new layers. If anything, if the liar revealed happens, it'll happen at a moment that's probably like organic to the story. I think the first time they tackled this kind of story was in Bug's Life, and I give that movie a pass on that front because that was my first time being exposed to that kind of story. And then other movies since have been like, yeah, this is like what they did in Bug's Life or Chicken Run, blah blah blah. But this is still, like I said, this is still Pixar. And from what I've heard from the behind the scenes with Adrian Molina, from what I was told, he couldn't seem to nail what he wanted to do with Elio himself, because Pete Docter came in and he said, we need to tell a story that's gonna make audiences understand what this is about. We can't just tell the story you want to tell,
right?
Which is very much that whole understanding, the brain trust you said, like with Pixar, like it's the business and then there's the artist, but there's got to be some sort of middle ground of understanding,
right? And Pete Docter wouldn't do this if the brain trust was addressing issues that weren't being addressed in the other drafts of the film. And that's usually a very hard concept to wrap your head around.
Yes.
Because, well, that's not what I want people to focus on. Right, but the brain trust, which is heads of story, directors and writers, and all at the top of their game, are watching your movie and saying, this is a problem with the movie. And so, while I have no doubt that Adrian Molina was going to make a very strong film, if there was problems that weren't being addressed that they needed other directors to step in and fix.
And if he's already having a problem with where he wants this character to go because he's telling a story that's so personal to him, there needs to be some more hands on deck.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, and the fact that he's still credited as a co-director and co-writer, they are making it clear it's still very much his idea, his story, and working with it. And if this is just the help to the finish line it needs, my whole thing is that at some point, if the director's vision is getting in the way of a movie being really good, then the director should step aside to let the story do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
And I know that's not a very popular opinion, and it's a very tough pill to swallow, that sometimes you have a great idea and you're not the person to tell it. That's hard.
But to be fair, we've got, like I brought up, we have Domi Shi on the movie, and she already came off the bat of making a really personal movie herself. So if anything, she was probably like constantly in communication with Adrian Molina, like over, hey, what was this concept and what were you struggling with? What can we do? And of course, with Madeline Sharafian, I mean, I'm sure there was a very, like you said, if he's still credited as a co-director, there had to have been some respectful understanding. There couldn't have been some bad blood. There really just couldn't.
Right, and I'm very hopeful, and I have a lot of hope that Elio itself is going to be very good. We actually saw a trailer with it from How to Train Your Dragon.
It looks so colorful.
It looks so colorful, so cute. All the kids that were in the theater
they were laughing.
They were getting very excited. Like, we want to see that. And all the parents were going, I'm going to have to spend more money, don't I?
Yeah, but it's Pixar. What are you going to do?
So that's very good. And that was your number 2, my number 3.
So we were already in sync for that. So let's move on to your number 2 then.
My number 2 is a film that would have been a number 1 had it not been for another certain superhero film coming out this year, but we'll get to that in a minute. Number 2 comes down to Fantastic Four: First Steps.
You are the one who's going to take over this spot because this is personal for you.
Yeah, Fantastic Four has been a group I've been a huge fan of for a long, long time, and unlike most people, I loved Tim Story's films. I thought he did a very good job with them. Fan Four Stick was Fan Four Stick, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
For this one, I'm very intrigued where Marvel is starting to really experiment with how they film and how they tell their stories. We started seeing this with Thunderbolts, and Bob Iger said, this is how we're going to be telling the stories from now on.
Yeah.
Is really letting a director have a voice, as well as Marvel telling its story it wants to do. And it's a very intriguing idea that I think they're really wanting to tell different stories all set in this big, vast multiverse. But on top of that, this is a very simple story about this family coming together who are successful, facing their biggest challenge yet.
2 challenges, actually, with a couple of characters based off one of the trailers.
Right. We know they're dealing with parenthood and then the coming of Galactus. And that is so exciting. And what this means for the broader MCU is huge. But what it means for these characters who are in the 1960s of all places.
A multiverse version of the 1960s.
Yep, we've been confirmed they are the only heroes that exist in that universe.
Yeah.
They are the protectors of Earth. They have it figured out. And now, where are they falling into? What is this thing that's going to face them? Are they going to be successful? Now, I could go down my whole theories and rabbit holes of where I think this film is going to go, but I'm not going to.
That's another episode.
I think every single member of the Fantastic Four is perfectly cast. Matt Shackman stepping back from TV to do his first feature film, and this feels just so gorgeous, big, grand, and epic, and I'm very sad.
Not to mention Michael Giacchino's score that he's using in the trailers as well.
Oh yeah, Giacchino is one of my favorite score writers working today. He has got such a distinct sound and voice that he has brought to every film. And I don't mean that he himself has a personal style, but that he finds the style and voice of the movie and puts that in musically, which is so not easy to do. But I think just from the theme they released of his theme of Fantastic Four, it feels... It's very Superman-esque.
Yes.
And it feels very Batman-esque in that it's instantly recognizable. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what the Fantastic Four sounds like musically.
Yeah.
For this film, I'm so excited for what this film is wanting to do, what it's going to do, what it means for the broader MCU, what this story itself is going to be, of them trying to raise this family, having this kid as superpowered beings, and then going up against a world-ending threat that truly feels like a world-ending threat.
Well, it is a world-ending threat because Galactus is a devourer of worlds, so there you go. But I guess for me, on my end, I probably may have had this movie on here if we were doing a top 10, but I guess I could pick an honorable mention or two. This might make it. My history with the Fantastic Four is rough at best, because I'm not going to say I hate the Tim Story movies. I think for what they are, I guess they're fine, but there is some missed opportunity, I will say that. And with Fan Four Stick, like you said, that was Fan Four Stick. And my diagnosis for that movie is Dark Knight Syndrome, probably. And I'm actually going to just bring this up once. I'm actually one of the few people also that likes the Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie, which you can watch on YouTube. It is blurry, but give it a shot if you just want to watch something goofy. Now with this movie, I think it's finally doing what the other movies, even though the Tim Story movies did try, I think this is the one that's actually embracing its roots full on, and that's good. And that's good for Marvel too, because they've been of course in this stigmatism of, oh, it's just a marketing ploy. It's all about IP and following these notes and whatever. But now that Iger said, like, we need to lower the amount of executive producers or producer notes that are on set and all that, I think now we're finally going to get something that, okay, Thunderbolts was great, but now we're also going to get something truly unique, because this is a movie, like I said, it's embracing its roots, it's going all out with its action, and yeah, I'll give it a look. Actually, if you invite me, I'll definitely go watch. Yeah,
absolutely. And before we get to our number ones, any honorable mentions you want to throw out real quick?
Oh, honorable mentions. I'm trying to think really hard. Maybe if there was another horror movie. I guess because I actually did enjoy the first one, I would probably watch Megan 2.0. Yeah. I can't think of anything else off the top. I would have had to have written these down. Yeah.
Right. My honorable mention I want to throw in there is Jurassic World Rebirth, mostly because Gareth Edwards is directing this, and I'm a big Gareth Edwards fan.
I looked that up, and I was like, oh, okay, so they finally...
Trailer looks really, really good. I think it could be fine.
That scene where the T-Rex is swimming in the water when they're in the raft, I was like, wait, that's from the book. Oh, we couldn't have done that in 93, but we're doing that now. I actually got a little hyped, and I'll give it this, from what little we've seen of the new dinosaur mutants. I'm like, okay, we're doing something different. Yeah. We're not just making another T-Rex that's just 2 feet taller, or another Velociraptor that's 2 feet taller as well. Those are my issues with those two Jurassic World movies. I didn't see Jurassic World Dominion, and I was told there wasn't much to have missed.
No, there wasn't. But yeah, that's just our quick honorable mentions, our Megan 2.0 and Jurassic World Rebirth. If we have some time, those will probably also be seen as well.
Yes.
But other than that, we have to get to number one, which is not only my most anticipated movie of the summer, it is my most anticipated movie of the year.
And it's very much the same for me, so say it with me. Superman. Superman is the patron saint of superheroes, and he needs his due. I loved Man of Steel.
Yes.
We're one of the few people out there, well, I won't say few, we're the other half out there that likes Man of Steel.
Right.
Part of the other half. But regardless of that movie's problems and other problems that made itself forward within that universe, it was time for something that was both new and also familiarly fresh. How about we put it that way? Now, this is also James Gunn, who is coming off the heels of his time in the MCU. Right. And not only is he directing this movie, but he's captaining this whole universe, the DCU, as it's now called, going up against the MCU. That won't get confusing. Those words are different enough. Right. But I really want to see what James Gunn can do with this movie, not only because he's a great director and he's really come a long way since his time doing movies like Slither and co-writing Army of the Dead with Zack Snyder, or at least he was the screenwriter of that movie, and him and Zack Snyder are friends. But his whole modem for this movie was to make a movie where being nice can now be seen as a great thing in a world where being nice is seen as old-fashioned. And that's kind of reflective of this world without getting too political as well.
Right.
And I want this movie, much like I was saying with Materialist, I'm not saying this movie needs to change people, but it should be an eye-opener.
It should make people think.
Yes.
I really like that James Gunn has specifically said that the tone of this movie is going back to the Donner cut of Superman 2. That it's going to have that dark element to it, but it's still going to be that light hopeness, that light hope that we all love about Superman.
Yes.
And of course, I read All Star Superman in prep for it.
Same, yeah.
I've been reading a lot of the comics and everything they've shown, every trailer, every clip, and I purposefully stopped watching them now because I want to be surprised when I step in.
I was accidentally spoiled a certain someone who's we see in some of the production the character that's in all black. I sadly a toy title accidentally spoiled who that character was. I'm not going to say who it is on this show just so I let everyone go in blind, but that's my one regret. However, what I'm more intrigued with is much like. So this is another movie also where, yes, our focus is going to be on Superman, but we're also going to be establishing a universe moving forward after this. And with that also means other characters. Not only like characters within the Superman mythos, but characters within the DC universe altogether. Risky, but Gunn's done this before. He has managed movies with a bunch of characters and that are building up to something. But these are also characters, and again, bold and risky. These are also characters that are both familiar and some are very, I won't say obscure, but maybe niche. Like characters that are fairly familiar. We've got a Green Lantern in there played by Nathan Fillion, who I have all the hope in the world is going to knock it out of the park. Then we have Hawkgirl played by
Isabella
Merced, who's come a long way since playing that girl who did nothing in Transformers 5. And not to knock her, that's probably the screenwriter's fault. Anyway, and then we've also got Mr. Terrific, who's in the niche crowd, along with another niche hero called Metamorpho, who, by the way, if you look up what Metamorpho looks like and then you see what he looks like in this movie, the prosthetics on that thing look phenomenal. Here's one of my other concerns with the movie, which is this movie has a budget, I believe, of $263 million, which means it's going to have to make at least more than $500 to $700 million just to, I don't even know if that will break even, just to be a hit and to have this universe move forward. And I love DC. I want them to really have their time in the spotlight, but this is risky with its budget.
I think just recently, David Zaslav announced that Warner Brothers and Discovery are splitting again.
Yes.
David Zaslav is going to be helming Warner Brothers while Discovery and the cable channels are moving off to another section.
Yeah.
So it's clear that Warner's is not in the best state right now. No. It's a rough state for them. And they're now in a place where, and some believe that this was been David Zaslav's plan from the beginning, was that it's now easier with Warner's and Discovery split for another company to acquire the other.
Yes.
So this is definitely the make or break of DC. We should say though, we know we're getting Lanterns, we know we're getting Supergirl. So there's still chances for this universe to start and keep going and be a success. And I have hope that Superman's going to do very well.
And Zaslav, I also believe, said like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, as well as Supergirl, those are the big names that they want to really bring focus to. Yes, I did say Supergirl in there, which that's actually fair because seeing that is our second movie coming into this universe, along with Superman, Supergirl should get her time in the spotlight. And she has had the CW show, which I've heard people really like, and I heard the ending wasn't anything amazing, but I'm not going to judge because I haven't seen the series full. But
that series finale was not good.
Oh, yikes. But regardless, I'm going to go see Superman. I can't wait to see what they do. And, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Oh, yeah, the John Williams score. I mean, come on, how can you go wrong with
Ryan
that?
Murphy, who has done the score he did it for the Suicide Squad, he did for... I want to say he did some of Peacemaker, and he also did Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He's doing the score for this one.
Perfect.
And I love the way he's choosing to use Williams' music, because that is the Superman theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Hans Zimmer did a great job with the Man of Steel score.
Yes.
But I think it proved that Williams made the definitive version.
Yes.
And I think instead of trying to hide that or try to make something new, just embrace the iconography of this character, especially through the music. And I think we're going to be in a really, really good place with Superman. We know he's in a year 3. We know they're taking cues from Star Wars and that this universe has existed for a long time with different elements. So either it's, oh, you got to establish this universe. Maybe it's just a simple, we're dropping in. Here we go.
Here we go. Oh yeah, one other thing I'm looking forward to with this movie, Crypto.
Crypto the Superdog is a character I've loved. I even watched the Crypto the Superdog show when I was little.
I did see that show a little bit on Cartoon Network growing up too, and I know that show didn't get the best reception, but I remember enjoying it.
I was a huge fan of the show. Me and my brother actually used to quote episodes with each other all the time. Like, we would watch episodes. I've seen probably almost every episode of that at least 5 times.
Yeah.
It's a very fun show. And so I'm very happy to see Crypto. I'm very happy that he's an annoying little dog that doesn't know his boundaries yet and he's still learning. That's very cute. That's very fun. I like that Superman we are seeing is being put through the ringer in this film, and that's great for him. So overall, I am very excited for Superman.
Same.
Everything I keep seeing from it is exciting. I can't wait to sit in an IMAX theater and experience this and get started with a universe that it just deserves its time.
Yeah, and also just gonna do a little nerd comment here. I really love seeing the Kingdom Come logo in a live action movie.
And I love that the Kingdom Come logo it's seemingly like this symbol of hope. And if they are going to go do Kingdom Come, if that is where this universe is leading to,
at least we've already established the logo,
right? And that if he's bringing that logo back in when he's an older man, that's going to be very cool and intriguing.
Oh yeah.
But friends, that's all we've got for you today. And remember to head on over to Instagram at friendsonfilm_2023 and let us know, what did you think of the Phoenician Scheme? What did you think of How to Train Your Dragon? And what are you looking forward to the most for this summer?
We'll tune in next time and see y'all later. Bye.